ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Larkin, one half of the Steve and Mike Show. www.steveandmikeshow.com is up and running, where you can hear such shows as you're about to hear tonight. This is another edition of On the Mic with Mike, and I'm pleased to have on a rising star in the professional wrestling scene. I am on the line with the very talented Miss Shilo. Shilo, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is super exciting.
Well, I'm happy to have you. I got to tell you, I've been seeing your work. I've been seeing just your overall progression. We're going to talk about wrestling. I know, you see, here's the thing. You got two things that I'm digging, and that's music and wrestling. So, I mean, I had two great and wonderful things in art form, so let's just have fun with this.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
All right, so well, first and foremost, talk about how you got into wrestling. What was either the defining moment or matchup that, got you into it? Because it's great with people's stories, because when you look at it, some people get into it late, some people, have been a fan since a kid, but just tell us how you got into the world, this crazy world that is pro wrestling, show.
For sure. So I kind of collided with the wrestling industry in a different way than most of the people that I train with. I think everybody that I work with has been, a fan of wrestling since they were small kids, and this is a dream that they've pursued since they were quite young. It was a little bit different for me because I started doing this, and I actually became a fan of wrestling much later in life. So it kind of came about. I think it was 2 SummerSlams ago. I was kind of looking to kill some time on a Sunday, and I was talking to somebody, and I asked if they wanted to hang out, and he said, sure, I guess, but I'm watching a wrestling pay-per-view this afternoon, and I was like, well, that sounds dumb, but whatever. Like, I'm not doing anything else. Let's, he's like, you can come over, we'll have some beers, it'll be fun. So I did. I went and I hung out, and I was probably like halfway through the pay-per-view, and I'm like clenching my hair, like my face, and I'm on my knees on the couch just getting super into it, and I'm going, oh my God, like, how have I never come across this before? How has this never been a part of my life before this moment? And I was like instantly a fan. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, which he thought was kind of absurd. It's a weird thing to sort of start obsessing over so late in life, but I said to him after that pay-per-view, I was like, I'm going to be a wrestler. And he looked at me like I had 2 heads and said, that's probably the dumbest thing you said in a while. I was like, well, we'll see what happens. So that was my first encounter, and it was in that moment I was like, I want to try that. I want to do that, and that's kind of where it all started.
I gotta say, yes, it is kind of a little bit of a weird way too, but well, here's the thing, because everybody has a story and it's differently told, and I think that's well, because let's watch wrestling on 4, and then in the afternoon, like, oh my God, I want to do this, so I'm hearing you. And that, by the way, I have to attest to this because I know which pay-per-view you're talking about. That was the one that Brock Lesnar fought Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and I believe, oh God, it was the 4th one. It was Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and then somebody else. I forgot who the other one was.
Yeah.
So
I forget.
Yeah, it was that pay-per-view. So that was also the one that had, like, I think Finn Balor came back as the Demon with Bray Wyatt. That was where they were going with Sister Abigail. But yeah, okay, so I know the timeline you're talking about. What you see, and you know what's funny about that is too, Shiloh, is I hear you talking about that, and I'm like, good God, that's 2 years ago already. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's wild because I mean, I'm sure that at some point in my life that I've seen wrestling before, but I had no reason to pay attention. And that's kind of the funny, like, it's a cute story that I started watching it that way. But the reality is, shortly after that, I started watching NXT, and I fell in love with it was around the Ciampa and Gargano story as that was progressing, and I fell in love with that storytelling, and it kind of all grew from there. And that was when I realized, like, the amount of storytelling and the cool, like, the way that they were communicating stories, and that's what I really like. If I had to just watch that pay-per-view, I probably would have just kind of, become a casual fan or something. But once I was able to see the kind of stories that you could tell with wrestling, that's kind of when I got really into it. I started researching schools and all that fun stuff. So.
Now, I want to definitely get into the school thing, but as I'm hearing you say this, because I can actually equate to this, and I think you'll enjoy this. So, you started late in life, and I'll say this: I started late because when I started watching wrestling, I started watching in 2002. So this is after the Attitude Era, the boom that was the
Hmm.
'90s. This was the
For sure.
this is the ruthless aggression era. Like the John Cena's are on the come up, the Randy Ortons, the Batistas. So this is going into the new wave. So I kind of agree with you about that because like this was also around the time where wrestling was kind of taking a dip because the Monday Night Wars were over, WWE was the only game in town, and then obviously TNA, now Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, the whole nine. So I can equate to that, and I think it's very interesting. And yeah, Braun Strowman I think was in that match. Now that I was thinking about it, and I got to ask you because I know we're gonna bounce around here, but I want to shoot the breeze with you, Shiloh here. Braun Strowman, I know you got to, first and foremost, how was that experience getting to go check it off your bucket list? NXT TakeOver, WrestleMania, that amazing weekend that was.
It was nuts it, to go from watching. I feel like the past year, especially, it's been nuts. I will have come up on my one year officially of being training, like of having trained is in like a week. So in this incredibly short amount of time, I've gone from seeing my first pay per view to being. I went to a Road to WrestleMania event the last year, so I got to see my first live event. I went to my first of many independent shows, and then it kind of just graduated up to being at WrestleMania. And the fact that it was so close, like I'm in Ontario, so the fact that it was so close, it was driving distance was kind of lucky, and it was wild. There were so many moving parts, and there's so many things that kind of came to conclusion for me. So that was the end of that feud or that story with Gargano and Ciampa. That was the conclusion of that story that had made me fall in love with wrestling. So being at Takeover was nuts. Being a part of and being able to see the first women's main event was crazy. It was such a cool weekend with so many key elements that were really important to me that I can't really, I don't know. It was wild. It's so cool.
I have to say this. I think it's great that you get to check off WrestleMania on your bucket list and that weekend as a whole. Because I'll be honest with you, like I've been to a WrestleMania, but I think just that experience that weekend, because it's nuts. Everybody from around the world, like yourself, Canada, Shiloh. So I think that's
Mm.
great, and it's a great environment. Because how electric was it just being in that building?
I've never been in any kind of stadium with that many people before. It was almost surreal to see that many people come together for something that you have developed such a deep love for. Like these people are just going bananas. Like it was, it was cool to be part of something so big for something that means so much to you.
Now I'm gonna say this right now as I'm listening to you talk about that experience. I think the one thing I got to check off my bucket list because with wrestling those WWE pay per views like the big fours or their Survivor Series, the Summer Slams, the WrestleManias, the Royal Rumbles. I think the Royal Rumble is the only one I have to check off my list to go. That's a bug list because I've never been to a Royal Rumble, so that's crazy.
Ah, there you go. Well, now yeah, it's a goal, right?
And it,
Something to work towards.
well, what it is like when you're so passionate about something and you just love professional wrestling and just getting to be there, like you mentioned, the fans. And I'm gonna put over Canada for a second here because I gotta put
Mm.
over Canada because Canada, the scene with yourself and there's so many companies like the PWAs, the Border City Wrestling, Scott D'Amore, Impact Wrestling is the headquarters there. But I gotta say this, and I mean this wholeheartedly and the utmost sincere respect to you and the Canadian folks. Canada outside of like the UK, Mexico, and all these, the international spots, are got to be some of the damnedest, rowdiest fans I've ever seen in my life. So I got to give a big up to Canada.
Us as Canadians in general, we get excited. We're excitable.
Well, I saw the Impact Wrestling tapings that were in Windsor, and they do at the college there, and I'm just like, God dang, y'all are some great fans. And I obviously, you look at the Bret Harts and the Stampede Wrestlings, and like I mentioned, Scott D'Amore. Just there's so much wrestling in Canada. It's amazing.
For sure. And the quality of wrestling that Canada produces, I think, is what generates that kind of excitement too. There's so many incredible wrestlers coming out of Canada, and there's a lot going on in the area that I'm in that is really cool to be a part of. So I think that they kind of feed off each other too.
Now this brings me into it because man, Tyson Duke's Wrestling Factory. Tyson Duke's. We're gonna talk about Tyson Duke's in a sec, but I gotta ask you, how did you stumble upon his wrestling school?
Um, his school is local to me, so I'm in London, Ontario, which is where his school is based out of. And after I made my, half drunk declaration to become a wrestler, I was kind of met with like Okay, well, that's great, Shilo. Like, sure, if that's what you want to do, okay, but good luck finding a school around here that you're not going to have to travel to get to and all that stuff. And so I started researching what was available in the area and that kind of thing, and I came across the wrestling factory. And at this point, I believe the school had opened in October prior, so March, May, so about half a year. 8 months before I had started this when it had opened. So when I got to the school, I had or when I was first reached out to Tyson Other, I didn't know anything about Tyson. I didn't know anything about indie wrestling at all. It seemed like a handful of WWE shows, like maybe a couple of pay-per-views. Like I didn't really know anything about the indie scene at all. Didn't know who he was. And I remember being very blunt with him in my original message. I sent him a message and I was like, hey man, look, I was like, I am, at the time I was overweight. I was smoking. I was, I had horrible eating habits. Like I was just generally an unhealthy person. And I said to him, I was like, is this a reasonable thing for me to pursue? And he made it very clear that he was going to do what he could do with me as long as I was going to put the work in. He said, we'll start with you wherever you are and we'll get you to where you need to be. What you just got to do your part too. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. And it wasn't until after that I realized that I got to understand the indie scene a little bit more, that I understood, the clout that Tyson had and how respected he was in the industry. And I started to really appreciate how the quality of training that I was getting, because he could have been anybody at that point to me. He was just local. And now I'm so fortunate to have the fact that he is here is just, for somebody like me, there's nothing better. So
I gotta say this. Well, first and foremost, I'm gonna talk to you first about your progression before I say anything about the great Tyson Dukes. You're looking great. You're doing your thing, and I gotta commend you for that.
Thank you.
You are for real, for real. Like I see you doing your thing progression wise. I see the drills that you know on Tyson, on the Wrestling Factory's Instagram and social media, as well as yours. So I gotta say, just keep doing what you're doing. Stay on your grind, because you're thumbs up, right? For real.
Thank you. And it's crazy because I remember it was my second practice that I had gone to. I got out of bed the morning after my second practice, and I just felt like I collapsed. I fell to the floor. Every part of me was just so worn out that in that moment, when my groggy, half asleep sort of brain didn't even support my own body, and I kind of sat there on my floor. I was like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this?" But I kept going back, and it gets easier every time. I learn a little bit more every time, and I'm happy, and the amount of progress that I've seen is more than I could ever ask for, because it just goes to demonstrate what a great trainer Tyson is. Because if I can show up like that on my first day without even knowing what a heel and a face was, to booking shows and being able to put a match together, or do any of that stuff is really just a testament to what a great trainer he is.
Okay, and I'm going to try not to show my age in this, because I did want to mention something about Tyson Dukes. So, I'm a 90s kid. Can you just tell me what year you were born before I make myself old here?
No, yeah, I'm 33. I'm 33. That's another thing. I started really late training.
Okay, never mind that. You see, okay,
yeah.
that makes me feel a little bit better. But first and foremost, don't even worry about that. Because here's how we'll equate this, because you mentioned 33. Diamond Dallas Page is a WWE Hall of Famer. He didn't start until his late 30s, early 40s. So did Batista. And look at where their careers went to.
Yeah, exactly. I remind myself that, this is a lot of people, they don't do things that they want to do because they feel like maybe it's not right for them based on the timing in their life or their age or whatever. And I don't ever want to be that person. And I don't know where I'd be right now. Wrestling has kind of saved my life, and I don't know where I'd be right now if I didn't pull that trigger. So it doesn't really matter. I could be 100 at this point. I'd still be doing it if it made me feel this way. So.
Well, excellent. And first of all, yes, 33. And I'm going to say this right now. My mother is a saint, and I love her. She's one of the biggest influences in my life. I know never to say ask a woman her age, so that's why I wanted to go with the year there. But okay. So
Make the people work for it. Do the math yourself.
all right, so 33. I'm 27. So here's my earliest memory of Tyson Dukes. So I remember like I told you, like the 2002 era, the Ruthless Aggression era. He did a lot of extra work for WWE. I remember he did a Velocity match. It was him. I forgot who his tag partner was, but he was in a tag match against Eminem, Johnny Nitro, now Johnny Impact, Mundo Morrison, whatever you want to call him on what day, and Joey Mercury, Joey Matthews when they were Eminem. I remember it was him and somebody else against 3 Minute Warning, God rest his soul, Rosie, Matt Anawai, Roman Reigns' brother, and Jamal, Eddie Fatu, aka Umaga. So I remember those, his early ones. And he was in the WWE Cruiserweight Classic in 2016. I remember seeing him go against Taiji Ishimori in 2017 at Bound for Glory for Impact. So he's, and Team Canada in TNA as well. He was a part of Team Canada.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say this: I love the man's work. I think he's a great hand, and he has a lot to show to you, the youngins coming in, and just everything in general. So you're learning from a great teacher. So I just wanted to give a little respect, shout out to Tyson Dukes.
Yeah, he's the best. He understands the way that he understands the way wrestling works in a way that you don't that nobody else really does, and you can tell that. You can tell in the way that he communicates things to you, and the way he picks up on things that that take a wrestler from being a good wrestler to being great. He's the one that's able to identify those things. And that is why the students coming out of the factory are all doing great stuff, and they're all really good wrestlers. Like some of the people that I train with, it's crazy. They're coming from all different backgrounds and different levels of experience, different ages, and all of them are leaving the factory as really good wrestlers, and that's because of Tyson.
And I will say this, because I did mention like the PWAs, the Smash Wrestling even as well, Border City Wrestling, so many great promotions in Canada. If Impact Wrestling does come back to Windsor, does more Canada tapings, I got to tell you right now, Impact Wrestling, take a look at Miss Shilo here, because I hope to see you on one of those. I'm just going to put that out there, because I'm saying
I love that. No, I love it. You know what's funny is that my actual debut show, my first match was a pre-show for when Impact and Smash collabed here in London. So it was the Brace for Impact show, and I was the pre-show, which is very cool.
Now that
was huge too. It's like my debut, and it was this really big, important event, and that was just coincidental. That's kind of how the dates lined up. But what a cool opportunity that was! Like at the end of the day, I've already been able to say I've been a part of some really cool things. So.
Well, I think that's what's great about them is if you actually look at it, it's kind of like a territory kind of days. If you look at back in the territory days, because like you mentioned, the Brace for Impact, they're partnering up with the Smash Wrestlings, the Border City Wrestlings. They did a show, Wrestle Pro, the United We Stand show that was in New Jersey for WrestleMania weekend. So I mean, you see a lot of partnerships, and what's great about it too is I know people will say, because there are naysayers that will say, oh, but who is this? What's this? You're introducing them to them, and you get to see a lot of fresh faces that that you'll like going forward.
Yeah, and Smash is another great example of some of the talent that is coming into the area too, because they are the quality of entertainment that they produce is out of this world too. Everything from the roster to the stories that they're telling to the people that are coming together to put the rings together to the commentary to everybody. Like it's such a fantastic promotion, and to be able to sort of come into that with Tyson working with Smash and things like that, and having access to that kind of platform to learn to wrestle and to be a part of that is nuts. Like the way the whole thing worked out for me is like a small child who wants to be a wrestler. It's like their dream. They're like, I want to train at the best school, and I want to be affiliated with some of the best promotions, and all of that stuff is, I kind of got this given to me on a silver platter. And I do put the work in. I try really hard, but I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't think I could ever express my appreciation for quite enough, and that's some of it.
Now, I will say this because, like you mentioned Smash, like I'll be honest with you, I've seen Rosemary and Allie have an amazing feud, I believe, when she was Cherry Bomb there at Smash. There's so many great talents with Smash, and Smash is featured on the GWN, the Global Wrestling Network for Impact. So, I look at these promotions and I see what you're doing, and I'm gonna ask you as well because with the international, like I brought up the UK scene, like you look at ICW, the Progress Wrestlings that are associated with WWE and the NXT UK brand, but there's also like World of Sport that's worked with Impact Wrestling for their MediaCon event on Twitch. I'm guessing, and I have to ask you because I'm thinking UK, Japan, Mexico. You definitely want to travel the world to just hone your craft and just adapt and add a little more repertoire to your style.
150%. I think that to be able to go to different places, learn different styles of wrestling, and work with different people, that's how you get better. In the event that that becomes an option for me one day, that's an opportunity I would jump at 100%. I think that anybody in my position would be probably willing to do the same thing. So, yeah, that's something I would totally want to do.
I'm gonna say this to you as well because I look at like so many Japanese promotions. Obviously, the big ones: New Japan Pro Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Noah, Stardom. Like for women, there's so many great talents in the Stardom division in Japan. Like, look for example, Io Shirai, who is now on WWE television, WNXT. So I look at Stardom and I look at like these promotions like Rise, which Impact uses a lot of their talent. The Shimmers, the Sabotage Wrestling over there in Texas, run by Thunder Rosa, who's also Cobra Moon on Lucha Underground. Shine, Women of Honor. There's so many great women's promotions / divisions. That's amazing to see. So again, this is my shout out to the ladies, and I'm going to include you in that because y'all are doing your thing.
Thank you, and the with the women's revolution and the way that the women are getting a different kind of respect in wrestling now, and I have not been a part of this industry long enough to say that I have experienced the hardships that women have gone through in wrestling, who have worked really hard to be where they are, and I haven't even been involved in it long enough to say that I've witnessed it secondhand because a lot of this is new, but I've done the research that I can and the time that I've been a part of this to try and make sure that I do have an understanding of where women have come from and to make sure that I know what they've gone through so that I have the opportunities that I have. And it's a really cool time to be a woman in wrestling. It's a really cool time for that. So I'm lucky.
One thing I just want to add before we move on, the other thing I forgot to mention, Brace for Impact, also for a very good cause, was that show. So I got to give big ups to that because I'm big into charity and just, just the whole nine. I think that's wonderful because we get to see, like obviously with the Make-A-Wishes and, just doing right by the fans. I think that's wonderful because, like I said, putting smiles on people's faces. I know it's cliche, but it's true and it holds up.
It's not though, it's huge. That's why, at the end of the day, that's why anybody does this. Nobody goes into, you go into wrestling because you want to make people happy, entertain people, and have people come and enjoy a show. And there's an energy at shows that you don't that's not like anything else. Like my first I know I mentioned that I started in May of last year, started training, but before I did that, I went to my first MASH show. It was like a week before, and that was kind of what sealed the deal for me because I was really nervous about going to this this school to do this thing that I had no experience with at all. And I went and Tyson had a match, and I wanted to go and see what his whole vibe was. And I remember sitting there, the fans are just going bonkers, and I'm getting so into it, and I'm feeding off this energy, and it was like nothing else. And that's something that you can't, that's why they do this. People, you put your body through hell so that other people can experience that feeling of being a part of something so cool. And I think that's just the ultimate goal of wrestling in general. You just want to make sure people are entertained and having a great time.
Most definitely. And you know what it is, too? Because I think I use E squared with this. No, I'm not talking about E equals MC squared. I'm talking about E squared. I'm talking about evoking emotions. I think that's what you want to do as characters, whether it be mad, glad, sad, indifferent, whatever it is. As long as you're getting emotions and nobody's sitting on their hands, I think that's very rewarding.
Exactly. That's the point. If you're not, if you put the effort in to make sure that you're getting people invested, and that's the storytelling aspect of wrestling is what takes the match from good to great. When you're able to really communicate and resonate, and fans are able to get invested that way, it's really cool. It's a really cool thing to happen.
One thing I wanted to ask you with the women as well, because we've seen so many great wrestlers in Impact, WWE, Ring of Honor, UK, all over overseas with wrestling. So I have to ask you, like, you were there for the women's main event. Incredible history, historic moment for the women in pro wrestling. Ronda Rousey, man, taking over the MMA world, taking over the wrestling world. I mean, we've seen back in the days in the Attitude Eras with Ken Shamrocks, Tank Abbott in WCW. I'm talking about people like, Frank Trigg, very briefly in TNA at the time in 2008. Brock Lesnar, even CM Punk dabbled in some mixed martial arts. So I got to ask you, what do you think about the whole MMA pro wrestling tie-in? Because as a lover of both sports and both art forms, I got to say, I think it's absolutely very rewarding because, Dana White has that relationship with Vince McMahon. So I think it's great to see that tie-in.
For sure, I have a ton of respect for people in mixed martial arts. I have friends that do that kind of that are involved with that as well. And I remember, like, a buddy of mine, I remember going to one of his first fights and standing there and watching what he was putting himself through to win his match. And I remember first of all, thinking to myself, I was like, I can never do that. Like, that's a dedication to something that I don't know if I'll ever feel. At that time, I wasn't watching. I hadn't seen wrestling before, and it was what they put themselves through is a lot different than what we do as wrestlers. There's always a danger in a contact sport of any kind, but to be able to face something head on, knowing that there is a good chance that you're going to bleed and you're going to come out swollen and battered and bruised for that, for that win is a dedication that I don't think a lot of people feel for the things that they love, and I think that's what is why I respect it as much as I do, because that is a true commitment that should be respected.
I have to ask you because they talk about risk and rewards with pro wrestling. So knock on wood, I'm going to knock it on for you. So I'm going to say so far, I mean, it's not ballet, as they say. You've seen the do not try this at homes and all this good stuff. So I got to ask you, so far, knock on wood, any injuries or just knock on wood, everything so far has been good with your training?
Oh man, Tyson for a while there, he just called me, my nickname was Glass, just because I've hurt myself so many times. And I think it was like my first week or something. I got a hairline fracture in my ankle. I was in a boot. I broke my wrist a few months ago. I was off for 2 months because of that. I had a trauma wound to my patellar tendon in my knee. I hyperextended both of my elbows when I just had a back bump. Like, I was told when I first started wrestling, and I went into this, I think that people kind of thought I approached it like a kickboxing class or something. Like, oh, this is going to be, a fun way to get in shape and maybe meet some new people. And it kind of was. Like, I didn't realize I was going to fall as deeply in love with it as I did. But I remember going back after my first injury and going back after my second injury and then breaking my wrist. And that was huge. And I had to ask myself, is this really worth it? And I didn't hesitate. I knew it was to me. And I had somebody say to me, the moment that you went back after that wrist injury, like that was when you became a wrestler. That was when you really demonstrated your dedication to this. And I don't really think that there's anything that could get me out of it now at this point. I mean, I'm too invested. I've broken too many bones like this, take me. Wrestling's going to take me out.
So, if I can make a pop culture reference here, and this does tie into wrestling, so are you going to the extent of like Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, where he dies in the ring and just goes to?
I make that joke all the time. That's like my running gag. I'm like, this is it for me now, and that'd be okay, because I can't think of anything that I would want to do more than dying doing something I love. So, hey, everybody's got to go somewhere. You might as well make it count.
Hey man, to quote Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, Ram Jam 1, 2, 3. That's it.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, in a perfect world, that won't be the case. But if it is, then just know that I'm not upset about it.
You know what it is too? That's such an underrated movie. It really is, because it does really show the actual. It shows what the business is like. And I was always like this because I always I'm a guy behind the scenes, and I interview a lot of great people like yourself, Shilo. So I'm gonna put you over here. But so
thank you.
You're very welcome. So what's interesting to me is like, I hear people, and people say it, just because people look at you like, oh, you like that wrestling stuff? Yeah, I do. So when people use the other F word as it's derived, and it's a word that rhymes with, bake. So
Uh-huh.
I always go look at like look at drills of what people do at MMA, or just look at the actually watch a wrestling seminar and actually see for yourself if it's the word that rhymes with bacon. I always go back to, I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen the old documentary on 2020 with John Stossel and Dr. D. David Schultz slapping John
I
Stossel?
no. No,
Okay.
I haven't seen that.
So for those that are not aware, because this does pertain to what we're talking about here in this forum, so John Stossel was on 2020, and this is Barbara Walters at the time. She's doing the reporting. So John Stossel, if you've not seen the whole thing, they're asking him about wrestling in the industries, and someone did mention that it was predetermined, but he didn't actually say the F word. He said predetermined, which yes, but still people get hurt. There's risk rewards, etc., etc. We know this.
Of course.
We love wrestling. That's why we love it. So he
Mhm.
goes to Dr. D. David Schultz, and he's like, well, I think it's fake, in that nerdy John Stossel voice. And Dr. D goes, well, this is the business one, the toughest survive. And then that's where he says the fake, and then he goes, is that fake? And then he slaps John Stossel like right on the ear, not even the face. He gets him like right in the ear, and then he runs away. He
Boy.
goes, is that it? That's an open hand slap? You think that's fake? And then John Stossel, you see the aftermath. He's got the ringing in the ear. So that was where John Stossel found out about the business, if you will.
I think that I usually laugh it off because it's that is almost become a like people are almost trolling you when they say that.
Exactly.
Like, oh, wrestling's fake, right? Like, no one says that seriously. Nobody thinks that I'm like, whoa, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? And I think that the one thing that I always, when people kind of ask for a little bit of information about what goes on behind the scenes, I do my best to inform them and explain to them the work that goes into it and what the ultimate goal is and what you're trying to accomplish. And it goes back to storytelling. Like, we're trying to invoke emotion and we're trying to tell a story. And if come to a class. Tyson has the school set up in a way that if you want to come try the class before you make a commitment, of course you can. Come, take a bump, do some rolls and see how you feel, and then see how you feel about throwing around the F word after when you've ran your ropes for the first time and your back's all bruised. it changes your mindset really quickly once you get in there and you're able to experience it. And I tell everybody, it's like, come, who knows? Maybe it'll be the best thing that ever happened to you. I know it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Or maybe you'll hate it, and maybe you'll get a new respect for what people do in there. So, I mean, either way, come try out, come have some fun.
And okay, see, here's where I go with another Canadian reference. I'm going to talk about, if I could be serious for a minute, I'm talking about Lance Storm. So Lance Storm has the Storm Wrestling Academy. I know he's doing some work as a producer with the Impact Wrestling right now at these last tapings. So I will say this. Like, I've always liked Lance Storm. I know people, like, they did the boring gimmick with him in WWE, and then he started doing, like, the Cabbage Patch and dancing, and I'm just like, what are you doing to my Lance Storm? Because, he doesn't have a personality. But anyway, I digress. It's old memories since 2004. So, and it was funny, but still, the man can wrestle. Let him wrestle, damn it. So, like, the early moments with him and Chris Jericho and the Thrill Seekers and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and being a part of the Un-Americans with Christian and, God rest his soul, Test and William Regal, who's another great technician. I always liked Lance Storm because he would always, work on the body parts, and you see that now with British Strong Style with the joint manipulation, a systematic dissection. And I always loved that storytelling about it. Even Bret Hart, we can go down the line with the Hart family and Natalia being a part of that as well. But here's the thing. Because people talk about, like, the Spot Fest and the Spot Monkeys, as a broken Matt Hardy would say. So,
Yeah.
the aerial assault, it's great. And it's kind of like, you look at a Young Bucks match, and it's like watching a video game. It's like, it's got to get your PlayStation, X square, triangle, R1, L2 kind of deal. They're all over the place. It's a cluster. And, I mean, there's different repertoires and there's different styles of wrestling, and I appreciate all. But I always like just the overall systematic dissection, whether it be joint manipulation or just like Lance Storm, the great technicians that there are out there.
Well, and I think that with the different types of wrestling, everybody finds something that they either gravitate towards that seems more natural to them, or something that they're good at. But there's always going to be a place for each of those different types of wrestling, because there's an infinite number of stories to be told, and there's if you use your if you get creative, there's always going to be a way to appropriately use that stuff. Spot Fest and Spot Monkeys and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing. Like, you can get in a ring and you can cram as many things as you can into however much time you've been given, and it might you might think it looks cool, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's communicating a story. But you can hit, maybe a really cool aerial move, or you can hit something really simple, and it's going to, if it's properly placed in a match, and it's an appropriate point in that story that to communicate what the message you're trying to send. It doesn't matter. You could be hitting somebody with a really big forearm, or you could be doing a moonsault, and you can get the same reaction of the crowd if it's used properly. So there's a place for all of it. You just got to make sure that you're paying attention to what you're doing with it.
Awesome. One thing I do have to ask you also, Shilo, is one thing I meant to ask you. Intergender wrestling. Like, you know what's great about intergender wrestling is I see the boom that it is, and personally, watching shows like Lucha Underground and seeing what they've done in AAA, WWE does a little bit with the Mixed Match Challenge, and I know Impact recently did it with Scarlett Bordeaux when she took on Glenn Gilberti, Disco Inferno, Disco Fever. Yeah. So they did that intergender stuff. So, and I go back to the 80s, looking at like the likes of Andy Kaufman with being the intergender champion of the world, going against Jerry Lawler in Memphis, making fun of Jerry Lawler's accent, Memphis, Tennessee, and the whole nine there, that storytelling. And I see how intergender wrestling has come a long way. We get to see a lot of great talents, fighting men and women, just killing it on the independent scene, whatever promotion be. So I got to ask you, as we talk about styles, I got to ask you about intergender wrestling. What are your thoughts about it?
I think that intergender wrestling is an important part of wrestling as a whole. I think that it is something that is able to tell. There's a lot of untapped stories that you can tell between a male and a female wrestler that you can't tell with two men or two women, and that expands the sort of the stories that we have access to share with the audience. And I think that this is. There's people that have a problem with it, and they think that it's unrealistic, and I think that is an unrealistic sort of mindset to think that that a woman wouldn't be able to outsmart her opponent or be stronger than her opponent or whatever. And this intergender wrestling offers a platform to kind of demonstrate the different ways that we can do that. So I think that they're doing a lot with it in the independent scene, which is awesome. I think there needs to be more of it in the stuff that gets a bit more attention, but baby steps, everybody's kind of going in the same direction to sort of be more progressive with that kind of stuff, so that's important.
Well, prime example, I look at that. I look at the late, great, God rest her soul. I look at China, first ever female Intercontinental Champion, first ever female in the Royal Rumble. Same with Beth Phoenix, first ever female in the Royal Rumble. So I think those two broke down the barriers over the years as far as, intergender wrestling and women's wrestling as well.
For sure. And women want to be able to come in and say, this is, China's a perfect example of a strong wrestler. You take one look at her, and you know that she has every right to be in the ring with a man, because she's going to be able to give him a run for his money. And in the event that you're putting a match together with somebody who's maybe like if a woman is more petite than a man, there's always a story there too, and you just have to make sure you're telling it properly. That's all.
And funny story here on the sidebar here, Shilo. Back in like the early 2000s, I remember when the China workout DVD came out, which is great because I know China was very big into fitness, and she would always talk about it in interviews and just whatever. Then I remember around almost at the same time, the Scott Steiner workout DVD came out, and my God, that is just two different workout DVDs.
Well, everybody has their own style, I guess.
Scotty Steiner. Okay, I'll be honest with you. That man. Okay, I see. First and foremost, this comes back to you because I saw you on social media doing your Scott Steiner math there. I saw the Steiner math. I saw it.
Oh, geez, I came home from work to for those that are listening that have no idea what he's talking about. I sort of I reimagined the Scott Center math promo to demonstrate my frustration with leaving on my hair straightener, which I do all the time. And I hope my landlord's not listening to this, or I'm going to get evicted from my apartment. But I came home, and I was sitting at my desk at work and going, oh God, I think I left the straightener on again. And I came home that day, and sure enough, it was on, and I almost took a video of that, of cutting a promo on my hair straightener, because it was just too funny. And it's just such a silly thing, but it didn't burn my apartment down, so that's the main thing.
I'm so
the
glad.
The math suggests I should have, though.
I'm so glad you told that. That's awesome.
So ridiculous, but yeah.
Oh my God. And you know what it was too, because like Scott Steiner is obviously a legend. Whether 30 his Steiner math and those just those promos, man. Like I'm smiling and laughing thinking about it. But like growing up with the Steiner brothers, him and Rick, the dogface growing WCW, WWF, all over the world. Now I was there at Survivor Series '02 when he came back for the second run, where he fought Triple H for the title, and it was a shorter run than his first, and then he went obviously
Okay.
to TNA. But all right, I smile, and it does make me smile every time I see Scott Steiner just come around, whether it be on an Impact television or anything, because, like I said, that guy may be nuts with his math and just his very outright blunt personality, but I think he's a mind. I mean, he's a collegiate wrestler, and he's someone that can help the likes of you and many talents in the business.
Of course. Of course, there's a lot to be said for, the wrestlers that have paved the way for people like myself. And I think that the one I remember the one day I said I forget I had just started wrestling and I said something stupid, or I said I wanted to try a move that was a little bit kind of maybe a little bit of aggressive for me to be attempting at that point in my training. And Tyson looked at me and he laughed and he's like, Shilo, as much as you enjoy watching NXT and watching the WWE superstars, don't forget that that's not what you should be watching. That's not entirely what you should be watching, because the storytelling came from a place of when they were doing with just the basics and they were able to get the crowd white hot because of what they were doing with the basics. Back in the day versus what they're doing now. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of people doing a lot of really cool stuff now, and people are doing flips and all this awesome stuff. But at the end of the day, you need to understand the entire span of what we're doing here. You need to understand how important a character is to what you do in the overall match that you end up presenting to your audience. And there's a lot of really great character-driven wrestlers that the fan favorites that don't have to do backflips 3 times a match in order to get people on their side, just because their character is so fleshed out and enjoyable as well. And that's look at Stone Cold. That was his whole thing. And there's a lot of wrestlers that kind of forget that element of it, I think, and that's one way that we can connect with our audience too. So there's so many moving parts that come together to make sure that you're putting forth the best sort of entertainment for your audience.
See, you're segueing me here because you mentioned the great Stone Cold Steve Austin when he's not trying to record a world-class effing podcast, you know what I'm saying, with Sam effing Roberts. so we got to talk about Stone Cold because, like I said, the infamous promo, legend, we all know. We know Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hell, he's on Celebrity Deathmatch doing his thing back in the day on MTV. I'm talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. Man, I got to... Yeah. We got to talk about
this is and he's one of the few wrestlers that I knew, because
okay.
There's certain wrestlers that everybody knows, and Stone Cold's one of them. The Rock is one of them. Before I started wrestling, he was like one of the guys. He was like one of the only guys that I actually knew who he was. So
that's all right. I think
that.
What's amazing about that is, like you mentioned before, I even going to segue, because see, you're bringing up a lot of great points. And we're gonna talk about this here. So
sure.
You talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin, you talk about The Rock, and if you don't know wrestling, you know who those guys are. It's like when you're in the 80s or 90s and you don't watch wrestling, but that's what Hulk Hogan did. He wrestled.
Exactly.
So that's great. I like the segue. I like the tie in there. That's why I said I smiled when you said that, because I'm like, yeah, I like it. Same wavelength. So I got to give you props on that. All right.
Good.
All right. Now we got to talk about Short Finger 316, because I mentioned the speech there. We got to talk about beer diversity. Okay, beer diversity. Short Finger 316. I love the shirt. I'm not gonna lie. It smiles every time I think of it. I think it's great. Can you just tell everybody what this is all about? Because it's absolutely entertaining and I love it. I dig it.
Yes. So this was an event put on by the Queen of Craft and PWA Wrestling, and I was lucky enough that that another wrestler wasn't able to make it, and they reached out to me and asked me if I'd be a part of this event, and I said yes. I thought it was I didn't really know what the whole thing was. But I said yes, it was a booking, and I got an email saying, okay, well, we need your email, or I got a message on Facebook saying, we need your email, we have to put you in contact with your brewery and all this stuff. And I'm going, okay, wait, what did I just sign up for? So the way that this show was put together was an all-women's event where each of the women involved in this event represented a brewery in like a local brewery. I was lucky enough to represent a brewery called Shortfinger based out of Kitchener. I don't think that the match that I like the pairing of my brewery and myself could have gone any better because when I met these women that I was paired with, they were the best. Like they were, we started talking and they were just so awesome, and I was so excited about this match because we were told that we needed a theme. So I kind of toyed with the idea, and I knew that this was an event that was not, there were wrestling fans there, and there were people who support PWA there, but this was also a different event. It was sort of, the Queen of Craft was doing this to promote the breweries and women's wrestling. So there was a lot of people there that were there to do beer tastings, and they weren't wrestling fans, and I knew this was going to be their first wrestling experience, including the brewery that I was working with. They were not wrestling fans. So I talked to these girls, and I pitched the idea of sort of a Stone Cold like rip off, like an homage, if you will. And I didn't rip it off. I mean, So they were super on board, and the reason I did this is because I knew that is somebody that everybody knows, and everybody can get behind Stone Cold, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to be able to sort of lean into a character that's different than what I normally do. And excuse me, we came up with the idea for the shirts, and we had the shirts made, and the girls that I was with had the shirts on too, and it came out, it's kind of like a stable, and I did what I could. We had a really, really fun spot in the match that ended up being one of my favorite photos that was taken of me of all time. So this match was with the wrestler Nova. She was representing, I forget which brewery she was representing, but she's an incredibly bubbly, likable, great wrestler, great personality, and really gets the crowd into it. So she comes out and she's excited and hopping around, and people are really behind her. And then I come out and flipping everybody off, and one of the things that we worked into our match is that she was out of the ring, and I had her on the ground with my foot on her neck, and I got one of my girls to pass me a growler of beer. So I'm chugging beer with my foot on her neck, and there's a photo of me standing with the faces in the background and everything. It was so much fun, and probably my favorite show that I've worked to this date. It was so cool. We cut a promo at the actual brewery as well, at Shortfinger, where I got to stunner one of the guys that works there, which was super fun, and I got to kind of tell him off, and I did a beer bash. I got beer in my eyes, and it was really fun. It's all online, and I encourage people to check it out because it was a really funny thing. But this that event was, I really hope they do it again next year because I can't wait to be a part of that again. It was awesome.
A couple of things I want to say to that. Number one, Nova. I've heard of her, seen her work. Very talented individual. Shout out to Nova.
Absolutely.
Hell of a talent.
For sure.
Now, I gotta mention this. So, you mentioned the Stone Cold homage, if you will. What's funny about that is, like, it takes me back to TNA, like, mid-2000s when Shark Boy was doing his thing, and instead of hell yeah, it was give me a shell yeah. So, I mean, that always made me laugh. Now, I'm going to ask you, because this was kind of an indie thing for a little bit back in the day. Do you remember Stone Cold E.T.?
No, I do not. That might have been, like, I have to remind people sometimes that the amount of time that I've been in the industry, I've tried to consume as much as I have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I do actually feel like kind of an imposter in wrestling because I'm talking to these people that have been watching this their whole lives, and they know everything. And I'm learning as much as I can, and I'm watching as much as I can in the time that I have, but there's a lot of stuff that I haven't been able to even touch on yet. So I apologize, but there's going to probably be a few references that might go over my head.
Well, first and foremost, that's okay, because I'm going to show you the John Stossel thing where he gets slapped the bejesus out of. I'm going to send you Stone Cold E.T. because you have not lived if you've not seen Stone Cold E.T.
So, okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Sounds like something I need in my life.
No, so well, here's what I got to break this down to you when you see this. So, Stone Cold E.T. was on the Northeast scene. It started as like a drive-through prank. He would wear an E.T. mask and do the Stone Cold accent, ordering some food, and doing whatever. It was pretty funny. So then Stone Cold E.T. gets booked. He's on a show. He's giving a stunner to some indie talents. And you're thinking like Shark Boy when he was doing Shell, yeah, he would celebrate with some clam juice. Austin obviously with the beers, but not Stone Cold E.T. Stone Cold E.T. would celebrate with some Reese's Pieces. So he would eat Reese's Pieces. have it in his mouth. So that was a little bit of the origin of the Stone Cold ET. He's doing Stone Cold's
Love
voice in
that.
an ET mask.
I love that. I think that sounds, that definitely sounds like something I should check it, and I'm surprised I haven't come across it yet, but I'm happy that it's, better late than never.
All right. Yeah, exactly. I'll send it to you. You'll laugh.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Now I gotta move over to the music side of this for a second because we're gonna shoot the breeze on some music here. But I gotta just give a
Sure.
shout out to guys, people like Kyle Boone, Violet Lee. I know you were doing their thing over there at Tyson Duke's Wrestling Factory on the Canada scene. I know that you've worked with closely, so I got to give those people a shout out. Just a shout out again to the school and just the pro wrestling scene in Canada. So I wanted to leave it on that note there.
And I adore both of those people. Kyle Boone is actually one of my best friends, and probably one of the best people I've met since I started wrestling. He has a heart the size of the universe, and these are the kind of people, Kyle Boone, Jordan James, Violet Lee. These are the kind of people that when I'm having a day when I'm like, oh my God, I what am I doing? I'm in over my head. These are the people that are grabbing me by the wrist and yanking me off the ground and saying, get back in that ring. We're going to do this. We got to support each other. And there's been a few moments where, I'm not going to lie. There's been moments when it's hard, when you're injured or when you're tired and you're going, I don't know what I've got myself into. Those are the kind of people that are making sure that you stay where you are supposed to be. And I don't think that I don't think that's something you can't really ever express your thanks for, but it just goes to show that the people coming out of the factory are all stand-up people and fantastic wrestlers too.
I'm going to tell you guys this at the end of this show. Like, obviously, Shilo, at the end, I'm going to have you promote your links and your upcoming events, but I will put the links to Tyson Dukes' Wrestling Factory. You guys can follow Tyson Dukes and his Wrestling Factory as well. And you can follow Shilo, Kyle Boone, Violet Lee, Jordan James, the whole nine. So that will be in the description below this audio.
Awesome.
Now, all right, now we're going to switch over to music here because...
Okay.
Whew, all right. You have got pipes. You do a great job with your covers. I've seen your covers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hit the Road Jack, a little, I'm talking about like Halsey, Sam Smith. I mean, just the whole nine.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're covering a lot of ground and a lot of different genres, and I love all music because I come from a background where my parents, I've told this story before, but this kind of ties in, and this is why I love talking music with people. My parents, for over 20 years, worked in radio. As a kid growing up on Long Island, my parents worked for a local radio station called 106.1 BLI until like the late 90s. My mom worked at a radio station down here called KZQ in Myrtle Beach. So music and radio has always been like a good chunk of my life growing up. So I've always was into, like, my mom was into Motown of the Temptations and, like, just like the pop genres, the R&B genres. I developed rap, pop, R&B, the whole nine. My dad is the one who was always into rock, so I got the rock from him and a little bit from my mom as well. So I was always very eclectic in my music taste. So I like the different, like I mentioned there, Ray Charles, I'm talking about, Halsey, I'm talking about Sam Smith. You covered a lot of ground with music because there's so many great music out there. And I got to ask, are you very eclectic in your taste?
Yeah, I like. I'm of the belief that there's only two kinds of music, and that's good and bad. Music is my first love. Music is something that I've been doing my whole life, and it's something that I was that is what I was born and bred to do. So my dad is a musician. He still plays shows to this day. My parents met on the road when my dad was touring because my mom is a musician as well, and this is something that I've done my whole life. And it's kind of funny because the time and effort and dedication that I have to wrestling now is something that everyone had always assumed that would be me in music, and it was for a little while until I kind of shifted gears. But music is something that that is another happy place for me, and it's something that I do still work on. I don't pursue it as aggressively. Like I had a couple of years ago, I had a band, and I wrote all my own stuff, and we were recording and all of that stuff, and that has taken a backseat to wrestling for now. But I'm actually working on some things. I have some stuff in the works right now as well. I'm working on a track with Sandra Wild as we speak. Before we hopped on the phone, I actually sent some stuff off to get for that project. So I'm excited to be able to share some stuff too, which is cool. And with my old band, we did release we released one song, and then I released another song after we broke up. And I'm actually have reworked one of those songs I'm probably going to be using for entrance music, so that's cool too. So my entrance music is going to be music I wrote.
So you're kind of like Jeff Hardy with the Peroxide Gin. Jeff Hardy writing his own music. You see a lot of that with wrestlers too, like John Cena. That's John Cena singing it. You look at Mark Andrews on NXT UK. That's Mark Andrews' band singing his theme. So like I said, I dig that. I like artists performing and wrestlers performing their own music. I dig that. I dig that a lot.
For sure, and there's a lot of people in the wrestling industry that are involved in music in some capacity too, because it's just a different art form, and those kind of sort of creative brains tend to gravitate toward the same stuff. So it is common. I know even just at the factory, we have Jim Strider who always hops up on karaoke at the after parties, and he's got pipes on him too. Like there's you got somebody like Kevin Bennett who's doing his own diss tracks and mixing and producing his own songs. Like there's a lot of that. It's cool.
First and foremost, I'm so glad you mentioned that name because, okay, Kevin Bennett, besides being an amazing talent, the dude's got skills with with what he does.
Totally. So entertaining. His stuff's awesome.
Kevin Bennett. Oh, you see, I'm just smiles for that because I've heard Kevin Bennett's work. I like Kevin Bennett. I dig that because I'll be honest with you, as a kid growing up in the suburbs of Long Island, I don't want to say there were a lot of posers or wanksters that went to my high school, but there were a lot of posers.
Did you just say wankster?
I did. I'm channeling my inner 50 Cent. I am. I'm channeling my inner 50 Cent.
You should bring that back. I haven't heard that term in a while, and I think that it needs to make a comeback, so thank you for that.
You're okay. Well, first and foremost, let's not just add that Wanksta by 50 Cent was one of the greatest rap songs on the 8 Mile soundtrack back in 2002. Let's, as big as friggin' what's-his-face, oh my God, fucking Birdman once said, let's put some respect on 50 Cent's name in that track, please.
That was a huge tune. I was in middle school, I think, when that came, or was I middle school? I think maybe when that came out, and that was a fan favorite for sure.
Okay, don't do that because you were in middle school. I was in 5th grade when 8 Mile came out with that 8 Mile soundtrack. Yeah, and I'm not trying to make you feel old, but like I'm saying, like yeah. Because we're both the same way. We know you get me, so all right. So back to the posers and wanksters for a minute, because let me just finish the story and we'll move on. I swear to God.
Okay, sure.
So, and I'm not gonna, like I was pointing out there, if I was to bottom line this, son, because I said so. Posers and wanksters went to my high school because I'll be honest with you. Growing up, I grew up on East Islip, New York, which I don't know if you've heard of Boomer Esiason, but Boomer Esiason was a huge football player, and he went to the Super Bowl, the whole nine. That high school was pretty much like a shrine to Boomer Esiason. No joke. Like literally, his pictures were everywhere. Ralph Macchio went to the school for a little bit. Karate Kid himself, my cousin Vinny, the whole nine.
He was in The Outsiders as well. That's where I know him from.
See, here's the thing. I watched that movie in middle school. We read the book and watched the movie with him, Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez, the whole nine. Oh, see, you're bringing back memories.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is in it. Tom Cruise is in it too.
All right, I'm going to just say this right now. I didn't even mention this yet. I do a pop culture show. You were coming on my pop culture show in the future, just for mentioning that.
Let's kind of shift gears and okay, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay. So anyway, back to the posers and the wanksters. I grew up in East Islip, New York, on Long Island. East Islip, New York is suburbia land to the fullest. So if like a crime were to happen and something bad would happen in my town, would be like, everybody would be up in arms because it was very, very, very rare that crime would happen in there. Like, or I know, and it's so bad because I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina now because I got family here in New York, Shilo. But I check in with my people because I do, because that's where I'm from. I'm a New Yorker. That's where I'm from. I check in with my people, and just the outbreak of just overdoses and just the young deaths that's been happening over there. It really just breaks my heart. I gotta say that. Just people just, ugh. Anyway, that's another story for another time, but still, just a lot of posers and wanksters thinking they hard. I'm like, we live in the suburbia land. This is not Queens. What are you doing? So that's why I'm looking at them like that. So yeah.
I think that's everywhere. I think that there's I don't know. I'm from a small town too. I'm billed as from London, Ontario. I actually moved to London when I was 15, 16, around that age. Before that, I'm from Stratford. So, hometown of Justin Bieber, the hometown of the Stratford Festival, where there is just so much tourism, and it's a really pretty city. And even there, you find, like there's people walking. I'm like, this is the least. You're just the least gangster person I've ever met in my life. So no one's buying it if you're from Stratford, Ontario. That's just to anybody listening to this from Stratford who thinks you're a gangster. You're not. That's like a public service announcement, just so everyone knows.
And by the way, I have to give you credit now because I'm like, I really wish wanksters would come back too. I mean, wankster was a big W word. I mean, then there's the other W word that rhymes with bigger because it was like a white person acting like they were African American, but because that's kind of like that kind of overshadowed wankster. Wankster, you know what I'm saying, or wankster with the E's and our R's. So I mean, it's kind of like it kind of got overshadowed a little bit. I feel you, so I'm glad I got
wankster's a fun one though. I think wankster's a good word. I think that this. Right now is the revolution of the word wank, so we're going to work on that together. It's making a comeback. We'll start a hashtag.
Hashtag bring back wankster. There you go. So, all right. Me being an R&B guy, I have to mention this to you as well because you did a cover of No Diggity, and that is all right. I'm gonna put this bluntly. That is my shit right there. Blackstreet, No Diggity. Are you kidding me? Friggin' the Another Level album. I'm talking about Don't Leave Me Girl. I mean, Before I Let You Go. Blackstreet, that's some good R&B right there. And you did a nice variation of No Diggity.
Thank you. That was I think maybe one of my first covers. There was a period of time where I was posting fairly regularly, and how that kind of happened for me was that I was posting these covers. I started posting them. People seemed to be enjoying them, and I was sharing them a bit on social media and stuff. Then I was like, you know what? You write, you do all this stuff. I actually play guitar. I play keys, and I'm a vocalist and a songwriter. So I was like, you need to do something. Like you're just covering other people's songs is great and it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it. But like let's share what you can do too. So that's when I actually started pursuing assembling putting a band together, and I did. By going on Kijiji and showing up at some random dude's apartment, being like, "Hey man, let's make some music." And I made some really good friends out of that. So shout out to them. There was some evolution of the project. It went from sort of like a pop, indie pop kind of vibe to a little bit more of a darker indie rock kind of thing, which I was a lot more happy with, like an electro rock. You can find the two songs that we did release. You can find on YouTube at. One of them is called Secrets by Lost Languages, and one of them is called Night Songs by Lost Languages. And I believe Night Songs on Spotify and all that stuff as well. So I pursued that, and then that was my focus for a while. And that was a really cool thing to experience too, is like putting a band together and seeing how a song comes together with more than one person is really cool, because I had no experience with that before. I was doing everything on my own. And it's really neat to be able to present something that you wrote to somebody saying, hey, here's what I've done. You take your expertise and you just kind of pile on top of mine and we'll see what happens. So my guitarist was a guy named Bronson Metcalf, who was an amazing guitarist. He was actually a really great synth player as well. So I would bring him these songs that were kind of entry level. The lyrics were there, the melodies were there, and the basic structure of the song was there. And he would take them, and it was like he fed them steroids, and he just made them huge. And it was really cool because we shared a very similar vision in the kind of music that we produced. So the end result was always something that made us both pretty happy. So that was a cool thing to experience too.
So I'd just like to add also, after hearing that, Miss Shilo, I'm going to look up Lost Languages, and I'm going to put those two songs in the description for everybody to listen to on the music side of things.
Sure. Yeah, that would be super cool.
Now,
I hope people enjoy them.
All right. Now, I got to mention this to you because, all right, I'm going to tie this into wrestling in 1 second, but I have to address No Diggity for 1 second here. So
okay.
This is not Tales Out of School here, because this was a legit thing online. There is a woman by the name of, and Karen McMillan is not a bad artist. Her name is Karen McMillan, but she did a cover of No Diggity, dancing, and it was kind of, I don't want to say it sucked the big one, but it was okay. It was
I'm not saying it sucks, but I'm not saying it,
Like, I don't want to say that I went to school with posters and wanksters. No, but
I don't want to say she was a wankster, but
no, but Hey now, so
I hope this girl doesn't listen to this podcast. I'll feel terrible. I don't even know her, and she's gonna hate
no,
me,
and
but that's
there's
okay.
whatever. They can hate me now, but I won't stop now. I'm channeling my inner Nas there. There you go.
There you go.
All right, no, and she's talented, but just no with no diggity. Like you were fine, but just her was like no. Because here's the problem. I'm gonna mention this because here's the thing with people like us, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about white people and Caucasians. So again, this has to be said, and it really does. There's a lot of great, talented people of all race, size, what have you, and that's really what makes us as human beings very unique. And this is me just being real in this. It really is. That's what makes people unique, wonderful, just as human beings. Absolutely beautiful. That's why it's great living on this planet Earth and just the lives everybody lives. So,
Definitely.
going on with this, there's some people that should not do covers of black people's songs. She was one of them. Because they're like, you did fine. Because, like, No Diggity, Blackstreet. She was just one of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that when my approach to covers has been, a song is written by an artist and they've written it a certain way to communicate a certain message. So if you're going to come in and cover a song, you can either just cover it the same as they did, but that's not going to accomplish anything. It might sound nice, but ultimately the goal when covering a song, in my humble opinion, should be to do it better, which could very well be a possibility. Maybe you're a stronger vocalist. Maybe you just, you do cool things with your guitar, whatever, or to do it completely different. And I think that that's a fun approach as well. And you've seen others. I think what's his name? There's an artist on YouTube who transposes songs into minor keys. For people that are listening that aren't familiar with music, minor keys have a tendency to sound more like sad, somber. And so you take these songs that are traditionally upbeat, and by switching them to a minor key, it completely changes the whole vibe of the song. And I think doing stuff like that is really cool. Or when people do vocal covers of hip hop songs, or the other way around, any of that kind of stuff, it's fun to play with music, and there's so many things you can do with it that I think that's the best way to approach covers myself. A project that I was working on for a little while, which I'm still hoping to get finished, because I did have to stick a pin in it for a bit. But my dad, he's a old country rock and roll kind of vibe. He played with, Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks. And he still does his thing now. But some of his stuff off his old albums, I found a song that I really liked, and that's exactly what I did. Is I transposed it to a minor key and turned it into something that is a little bit more moody, and I want to get it recorded because it's really cool, and it's a nice, kind of tilting my hat to my dad. But it's a fun way to play with music and change it into something that makes it uniquely yours, even though maybe the song isn't yours to begin with.
All right. Now, I also just want to say this because I think that's wonderful, just because, like, you're talking about family aspect about that. So I will say this. When my folks worked at BLI, and I think this is just me because with millennials and stuff, and I mean, we're older, you're 33, I'm 27 respectively, and we grow, and we grew up with the music that we listen to, and we see the internet playing a big role, internet oriented, what everything is, like going out, and we'll talk about this when we do the pop culture. So folks, this is a little bit of an appetizer, what you're going to get on with the future show between myself and Shilo.
Sure.
But I just wanted to mention this, and I'm sure we'll reiterate when we do it that. When you look at, like, just the art of buying a CD and going out, because everything is so, like you mentioned, your Spotify's, your YouTube's, your iTunes, what have you, it's just, I kind of miss it because, like, just the old-fashioned way without everything being so internet-oriented, and also just because these damn millennials nowadays piss me off when I watch, like, the Fine Brothers Entertainment, and they don't even know who NSYNC is, but they know Justin Timberlake's solo career. They don't know the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears. That was a big part of the pop genre in the 90s, and they sold a lot of records, and it's like, what the hell is wrong with you kids?
You're like, how did you miss that? Like, how did you miss all that? I think that one of the things that I've been lucky enough to experience is, I've seen how the music industry has evolved, and I'm of an age where I saw it go from one platform to another. I saw it go from, buying, like, I remember cassette tapes, I remember CDs, I remember these first MP3s that held like 30 songs on your MP3 player. Like, I remember all of that. It was just kind of wedged into that sort of generation. And I also have, having my dad being a full-time touring musician for so many years, I'm able to have heard, stories about how that came to be back in the day and how you were successful. So with the way that music is accessible now, I think that it has given a lot of people, with the internet, it's given a lot of people the ability to share their music that may have otherwise not been able to. People just have to make a video and post it on the internet now. That's it. They gotta do. You could go viral overnight by posting a video. And with the things available to us, with the resources and the, even how accessible something like GarageBand is, something to record your own music. People are learning to record. It's eliminated the need for record labels, which has given people a lot of creative control. But on the flip side of that, it means that there's a flooded market, and it's a lot harder for people to kind of get recognized because there's so many people that have access to presenting their music to everybody. So it's a double-edged sword, I think.
Now, I will say this, and I don't want to say that the radio station that my parents used to work at back on Long Island, New York, there kind of sucks now. But it kind of sucks now. No, but...
Okay.
You know what it is, too, though? I think it's just, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of great artists out there that are very talented, and I'm not bashing that Karen McMillan that I mentioned. I'm actually going to send you that No Diggity I was talking to you about, because just to see what she did. So... I'm not saying it sucks, but it's just the evolution of it. You know what I'm saying? Just actually just buying a CD and stuff like I mentioned. I think just like you mentioned what we grew up with. So it's just yeah. I mean, we'll get more detail oriented when we do the other show, but it's just yeah. I mean, there's some good, there's some bad, there's some indifferent, but you gotta admit, I mean, if you're getting your name out there, then hey, you know what I'm saying? It's worth it in the long haul.
Everybody's just trying to make a name for themselves. At the end of the day, I think that's it too. We're lucky to have so many options to pursue the things we love. And I think that, quite frankly, I'm of the opinion that more people should do that. Mm-hmm. More people should pursue the things they love, and they should, there's all of these awesome things. There's so many ways for people to do the things they love now, and the world is pretty accessible now, and I think that, if you're going to do that, and then maybe the market will be a little bit flooded, and maybe that'll make things maybe that will make things suck more for me, but maybe it'll make things better for somebody else. And I think in the grand scheme, that's going to elevate any industry, having people that are passionate pursuing the things that they want to do.
Now, I think first and foremost, that was beautifully said. And number two, I will say this. One other thing I wanted to mention, because this is the wrestling tie-in here, and then I'll get to the final questions on this show. Wrestling and music, there's so many great themes in wrestling, and you get to see so many pay-per-view themes. Like you look at the Salivas and the Drowning Pools from back in the day, and you get to see so many great rock bands like nowadays, like your Baby Metals and the Korean rock scene, or just even so many that WWE has used and so many wrestling promotions use. I think because wrestling and music's so similar with the travel and the touring, and just I think they mesh well together. And I think music has helped in wrestling and helped in promotion in that front.
For sure. There's a lot of parallels between the music industry and wrestling, and I think that the touring aspect is a huge part of that. Like going from venue to venue and booking tours and doing what you can to share your art with other people at the sacrifice of maybe seeing a family or getting some sleep or what have you. There's actually quite a few parallels between the two industries, and I think that. There's things that come out of that you would never. There's once in a lifetime experiences that come from those kind of things that I know that most people wouldn't trade for the world. Even just something as simple as making a 2-hour drive in a car full of people to a show in a neighboring city. You have some of the best laughs you've had. So you imagine doing that for weeks on end with the people you care about, and surely there's going to be times where you want to rip each other's heads off. But there's a lot of good that comes out of that too.
I have a couple final questions here, and I'm going to tell you right now, you are welcome back on this forum anytime for an interview, and I will set up that pop culture show with you, because I got to tell you something. As soon as you said Tom Cruise and The Outsiders, I love the excitement. Don't forget Tom Cruise. Is somebody a Tom...
You can't forget Tom Cruise.
Well, I'm about to say, are you a huge Tom Cruise fan?
No, I'm not.
I was about to say, you and your Tom Cruise. All right, I like that. I like that a lot.
And then hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello? Give me 1 sec. I think my Bluetooth disconnected.
Okay. Right. Well, yeah, no, I was just saying, the Tom Cruise thing made me laugh. But yeah, we'll definitely, there's a lot of Tom Cruise to cover in pop culture. So, I'm going to say this, Shilo again. It's been an absolute pleasure doing this. We will do this again, and we'll do some pop culture. But I want to ask you, as someone getting into the business so late, but you're doing your thing, What advice would you give any guy or gal wanting to pursue a career in pro wrestling, or even music, whatever endeavor in life? What advice would you give?
I don't think it matters if it's music or pro wrestling or I don't know, is anything. If you love something, you need to do what you can to make that happen for yourself. And this is, we only have one life, and it's so cliche to say, like, you don't want to waste it. But at the end of the day, if you're not working towards the things that make you happy, what's the point of any of it? We are conditioned to think that maybe doing things or conforming to a certain standard is the best way to get the most out of life. But I think that if you take the time to listen to yourself and really pay attention to what makes you happy, it's pretty easy to make those decisions. You just have to trust your own gut. When it comes to something like wrestling, the best advice I could have is don't quit. Don't give up on yourself, because there's going to be days where you want to. Find yourself a support system, because everybody that everybody that you respect in the wrestling industry or any industry all had a day one. And this, that you might be looking at your day one, but one day someone is going to be looking at you with that same respect and saying, I hope to be where that person is one day. And it's because they're on their day one too. And everybody knows that. And when you have that network, and there's going to be the ones like I said, like for me, like Jordan James and Kyle Boone, those guys are gonna be there when I'm ready to rip my hair out. They're going to be the ones saying, get back in the ring, and that's how you grow together, and that's how you make those connections in the industry.
Again, beautifully said. And I'm going to tell you right now, before I even step back and let you promote your events and your social medias, I truly wish you nothing but the best. I really do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's fun. I'm having a good time, and I hope that doesn't stop anytime soon. I don't think it's going to. So.
Well, just keep staying on your grind, Shilo. Keep staying on your grind.
Thank you. That's the goal. And if sometimes if I get a little tired, I always have people screaming at me. I've made that pretty clear. So if I do start to kind of, if things get overwhelming, just lean on the people close to you, and you're going to get to where you got to go.
Exactly, and just don't be a wankster. Absolutely not, as well.
And and at the end of the day, never be a wankster.
So anyway, Miss Shilo, I'm gonna step back now, because ladies first. It's not just a Queen Latifah song. There it is, the pop culture references.
So I have a show coming up. I have a title shot with CC Moss at PWA in May on the 25th, and I also currently I'm going to be on the card for Revolution in September. So that's a bit of a ways away. But if you are interested in seeing what I'm doing, or what I'm trying to do, or anything, or even what I ate for breakfast, sometimes I'll post that on social media too. My Facebook, my Instagram, and my Twitter are all at I Know Shilo, so you can find me there.
And I just want to say one thing first and foremost, because one of the titles that you have there is "It's the world's worst Instagram." No, that is very untrue.
Well, it's all the word. I'm just kind of living my okayest life over here, and if people want to watch it, then that's cool. Make a spectacle of it. Might as well get something out of it, right?
Well, that's what I like about you, because I like that living my okayest life. That's unique. I dig that. That's unique.
Thank you.
The links to everything will be in your description. You mentioned Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Shilo as well. If you want to promote YouTube.
I even, like I said, I'm posting on YouTube in a bit. My music stuff is under Lost Languages. I think if you just type in that, you'll find it. If you want to share those links, that's super cool too. It'll make it a little bit easier for people to find.
Okay. So, sweet. I just wanted to make sure, because I know here's the thing with people's social medias. Some people use one more than the other, or some people just have a set social media. Like, not a lot of people just use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Some will just have a Twitter and Instagram. Some will just have a website. So it's very unique to see people's means of social media. But yes, all of that will be in the description.
Awesome.
Now,
and I'm mostly active on Instagram. I do tweet sometimes when I don't know if I'm one of those people that should be using Twitter, considering some of the stuff that comes out of my mouth. But those are the two where you can kind of see what I'm up to.
Right on. So it'll be tagged everywhere. And what else was I going to say? Oh, duh. All right, I just want to say this as well, because you hear a lot of movement on both of our ends. I will like to apologize to you, because sometimes, here's the thing, I'm an epileptic, and sometimes my memory is a little hazy. My brain's not dead weight, and I'm trying to get my head straight, but I can't figure out which special. Okay, anyway, no. But there's
so many Spice Girls.
But in all seriousness, I've had it. I've been an epileptic for many years, and sometimes I do forget to like turn off alarms, and you'll hear like a phone in the background. So that's the noise that you heard. So I apologize. I'll do my best Stone Cold Steve Austin. If I offended anybody, I apologize. That was still one of the coolest things on the podcast. But no, for real, I just wanted to put that out there because we're trying to record a world class podcast. I like Stone Cold, and we did our thing up tonight. So I got to thank you, and I'm gonna step back again because I'm rambling. So any final words to your fans and to your people that have been supporting you this far in your 1 year thus far, Miss Shilo?
Well, I want to thank you, first of all, for giving me an opportunity to kind of share what I'm doing and where I've kind of come from. And anybody, like, I've met some really cool people. To anybody who is following me and supporting me and, buying my merch. And I don't really know that I can put into words how much I appreciate the support that I've gotten so far. It's still weird to see somebody in a shirt that I has me on it. Like, it's wild. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to that, but I just want to, I'm thankful, and hopefully I'm doing something that is entertaining everybody and people are enjoying it. So I'm just going to keep working toward that to make sure that everybody's having a good time.
I echo your sentiments wholeheartedly for those who are listening, and I also would just like to say shout out to Heel Team 6 all day for that shirt and that wear.
Shout out to Heel Team 6, shout out to Fighter Alias as well, because they're hooking me up, and the support that I have from them is amazing too.
It's a lot of okay. You see, that's what I also gotta appreciate. People talk about schools and stuff. You gotta appreciate the clothing lines too, like all these apparels, the Heel Team 6 and stuff like that. There's so many great wear as well. You gotta just give credit to the wear because you gotta fashionize your fashionista. Accessorize if you will. I see like Dusty Rhodes if you will. I see your style.
Yeah.
I see it. All right.
This is the age of social media. I have to look cute, and if they're not going to send me cute shirts, then I have to buy them myself. And I'm a wrestler, so I don't make very much money. So it's a whole thing, So I appreciate what they do for me too, keeping me looking fresh on Instagram.
To quote Mac 10, featuring his wife at the time, T-Boz of TLC, you got to look tight to death. That's what you're looking. You're looking tight to death.
There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's awesome. It's been awesome.
So, in our last and final intro here of this podcast, people, for Miss Shilo, my name is Mike Larkin. Thank you for listening to another edition of On the Mic with Mike, and I'll talk to you next time.